streaming soon. Just checking, Hopefully everyone's having a good Friday so far. Looks like we're live. Go ahead and tweet out that stream. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Quote tweet it. Check out our live stream. If I can type stream. Well, I hope you guys are having a good Friday afternoon. As you can tell, we did some things on the wall behind us. We've been painting, making it look a little bit nicer. This week, hopefully, our audio is fixed. Last week, didn't realize that you couldn't hear any of the videos we were playing. Fixed that, so this time you should be able to. Today, we're going to be talking about the Elon crash out, Trump hitting him back, that back and forth, the big, beautiful bill, which is what they fought about, Palantir collecting data, ? An ATT hack, and Gumby flashing people. It's
Flashes the world.
Very scary. So, where do you want to start? Should we talk about the bill first? Let's talk about the bill.
Let's talk about the bill.
The big, beautiful bill. I'll pull up some highlights of it if you want to talk about what you think about it.
Well, there you go.
There's two sides of the story. Go for it.
No, there is. There's more than two sides, but there's two big things, and this is it just works into the
we have one
Trump and Elon problem as well. It just right there, Stephen Miller. And so they went out and talked about, Stephen Miller does a very good job at articulating what's going on.
Yep.
Okay. The problem that like Elon had with it is that it lifts our debt ceiling. Huge.
Why do people think that's a bad thing? And what is that exactly?
Well, it's $1 trillion a year we're spending on interest payments.
Yeah, but what does the raising the debt ceiling do?
Lets them spend more money willy-nilly.
Sort of, but not really. I mean, it allows them to spend more money.
They have to get it passed. But
so the counter argument to that and why Trump is pushing for a debt ceiling increases because of the slim margins we have in the House and the Senate, we will have to fight hard. Actually, we have to partner with the Democrats to pass a debt ceiling bill outside of reconciliation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so if we don't raise the debt limit now, we could default, which would be bad for America and the dollar, and the inflation would be insane. Or we can raise it now, and the goal of this bill isn't to increase the debt. The goal of this bill is to do all the things that Trump promised. And increasing the debt limit now means we don't have to fight with the Democrats and give them all kinds of good things for them to allow us to pass it.
And I agree. But
it doesn't actually.
Congress has been horrible about following.
I don't disagree.
Cutting everything. So, but I understand that.
I trust Trump better than I trust Congress.
That doesn't take much, does it?
It doesn't. But the point here is just because you increase, it's like, okay, increasing the credit debt limit is like going out and getting a credit card with a $15,000 limit.
Doesn't mean you have to spend $15K.
Correct.
But
just
most
in
people
case, but just in case it's there.
Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely.
And so I think it's a good thing, and I understand why he wants to do it. If we had better margin in the House and Senate, of course we'd do things differently.
And I agree. Trump is about the art of the negotiation.
Yeah,
he's removing things off the table that would be bad for him to negotiate against.
Yeah. So what does the big, beautiful bill do that people are pissed about?
That's one thing. It doesn't remove spending from certain objects. I mean, from certain departments and certain things like that. But you can't with a reconciliation.
That's what I was about to ask.
And so...
Oh, so you can't cut the spending they're complaining about?
Correct. Unless you pass bills that actually cut the spending.
So essentially, Trump was correct when he told Thomas Massie, you don't know how government works.
Yeah. It's sad that it works this way.
You would think that Thomas, for being in the House so long, would understand that. That this is... So reconciliation happens how many times a year?
whenever they try to do something like this.
But normally it's one time a year.
Yeah,
It's
but-
one time a year thing that they can do this reconciliation bill, which deals with mandatory spending and various other things.
And there's limited what they can do. For an
Correct.
example, they can't change how Social Security pays or how Social
Correct.
Security is taxed.
Correct. And that's why he's not getting rid of the tax on Social Security, because he
Correct.
can't do it with 51 votes in the Senate.
Right. And so he, instead of that, which he can do, he put in an extra 4K
Deduction. Yeah.
deduction. And so he's limited by our idiot government.
So the question I
rules.
have, and I haven't really looked into this, why don't they just change the rules?
See, and that's, who was it that said that? I can't remember. They're looking at the Senate.
Yeah, because
And
the
they're
Senate just needs to
saying
change the rules.
This is self-imposed by the
Yes,
Senate.
it is. 100%.
Why not take 50 votes, 51 votes, and change the rules, and then you don't have to have 60 votes?
Correct. That's all I would do.
And so I can't remember who it was, but they were saying this is just stupid. It's self-imposed. All this stuff.
It is. So if the Senate would do that, then that would open up Trump to be able to do a lot more things.
Yeah.
And he'd have a lot more fun. But they're not willing to do that currently, so we're working inside the system we have. And part of that is we can't deal with the Doge cuts because that can't actually be part of this bill, which is what Elon seemed to be pissed about. You're not cutting enough. This bill cuts 1.5 trillion in spending.
Which is, yes, it does, but that's nothing in our debt.
It's
But
nothing, but it is the most spending cuts
Yeah.
that have ever been in any bill ever.
Yeah.
So,
and so I'm
you can't
good.
say it
I'm
doesn't
glad for
nothing
that.
doesn't do nothing.
I'm glad for that, but at the same time, it doesn't deal with the issue. But because of the way the rules that Congress and the
Yes.
Senate have put in place, you can't deal with these things
Correct.
in this form. So I get it. It sucks. And
But I honestly think they do think it is a good bill because it gets Trump's promises done. He wanted to secure the border. It funds that. He wants to deport illegal immigrants. It funds that. That is desperately needed.
yeah,
And then it makes permanent the tax cuts, which is desperately needed.
Yeah.
Those three things themselves.
because I don't know if everybody realizes those tax cuts, if they went away, everybody is going to start paying more income tax.
Oh yeah, lots. Not just a little bit more.
Yeah.
A lot more income tax.
And the more you make, the more you're going to pay.
Yes, it's not good. So this is something that needs to be passed. The thing that there is one part of it I don't like, and I'm against, and it's not the Hearing Protection Act. That is awesome. We definitely need that to pass because I want to get my suppressor
Correct.
without filling out a ton of paperwork. They are adding a provision to allow auditing of ERC credits for an additional 9 years, or no, extending it to a total of 9 years instead of 5 years.
So they're extending the ERC credits? For
No,
9
the
years?
auditing of them.
Why?
So they could only audit them for 4 years, 5 years
Oh.
after filing, and now they're extending that to 9, which causes uncertainty and burden on small business.
Okay.
It's terrible
well,
because
there's an AI
first off,
provision in there too.
what
There's an AI provision in there too.
that
got thrown in.
actually don't care so much
And-
about that one. The federal government isn't going to regulate it well, but the state governments aren't going to regulate it well either. So I don't honestly care that the state governments aren't allowed to.
And it's not as far as people think it is. It just was released this week that, and I can't remember which AI, and it wasn't one of the big ones, but it was one of the smaller ones. It actually was 700 Indian engineers sitting there answering.
Oh yeah. I can pull that story.
And
out.
I'm like, and that, how many times are we going to get caught by that? That they release this new software, and yeah, that's it.
Oh, what was the company?
London-based Builder AI,
Yeah, Builder AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share the screen. There you go.
and it was interesting that they've been backed by Microsoft, and so
I think Microsoft put $200 million. into
yeah,
it.
and so, but it's a scam, and
It
I'm
is a
not
scam.
saying that all of AI is a scam, but this is typical of what happens: is that to get ahead, they cheat.
Yeah.
And try to get ahead, but in reality, at some point, it's going to fail, and that's what happened this week.
So going back to the ERC thing, why the 9-year thing is dumb, because the IRS can audit you for as many years as they want if they suspect you committed fraud.
Oh, and
So the
so
9-year
there's no
thing is
reason.
just stupid because it's
There's
just
no reason then.
there's absolutely no reason.
Yeah. So if
And then part 2 of it is they are going to revoke payments of ERC credits filed after December 2024. You
Just
were allowed
revoke
to
them?
file for them up until April 15th of 2025,
but they're just going to turn them and say no.
even if you filed them properly.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, so there's
Well.
some crappy provisions in there, and honestly, I hope the Senate just gets rid of some of that stupid crap.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. It hasn't passed yet fully.
Well, I honestly believe it will pass,
It will.
and it'll be very close to the existing form that it is today.
Yeah.
It may have some minor changes to it. Hopefully, they improve the Suppressor Act.
Oh, yeah.
There. That would be nice. But I think it'll pass. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's just going to take some time because they're idiots in the Senate.
Yep. So a couple people who've come out and talked about it. Ooh, I hit the wrong button there. One was Charlie Kirk. We are not going to watch this video because it is 30 minutes long.
Correct.
But he talks about it and explains why the BBB, the big beautiful bill, is good. So go watch that. We'll throw the link in the description down below.
It's good to watch if you have questions about it and you get it from one perspective, but that's okay. Get it from one perspective, and at least you have that perspective, and you can go look at other ones.
And then you got Stephen Miller. I love his explanations. He explains things very well. The one thing people complain about a lot that have no idea what they're talking about is the CBO scored the bill, and they said that it's going to increase the deficit. And the reason they said it increases the deficit is because it has the tax cuts. The tax cuts that already exist that are going to be made permanent are the reason it says it increases the deficit.
Yeah.
Do you know how often the CBO has been wrong?
Every time.
How
Joe
many
Biden.
of the staff at the CBO are Democrats?
Let's see. They've never donated in the last, I think, 20 years to a Republican.
So would you say that the CBO's reporting is biased by any chance?
I'd say most of government is deep state and then is biased because of that very thing.
Correct. They are very biased.
So,
Even the last time the tax cuts were passed, the CBO ranked them really bad, and they were completely wrong.
yeah.
So
because
do
it
not
brought in more
listen to the
revenue.
CBO report at all because it's just full of crap.
Yeah.
Ignore that and look at actually what's in the bill.
And take a look. We'll put these up.
Yeah, and then we got Scott Adams here.
So he was talking about the fight between the two
Yeah, he was.
egomaniacs, and I'm speaking of Trump and Elon. You've got two billionaires. They both have inflated egos, and they decided to publicly air their laundry. And so his last comment here is funny. Put Stephen Miller and Elon Musk in the same room and turn on the camera, please. We're all ears.
Yeah,
It would be funny.
I disagree with his assessment that the country is sleepwalking into a debt disaster. Stephen Miller and Trump's team do understand that there's a massive debt problem. This bill doesn't make it any worse. It doesn't make it really any better. It kind of does.
Yeah.
How it makes it better is by keeping the tax cut. It helps stimulate the economy, and if the economy grows quickly, that makes the debts less of a problem because tax revenues increase and all this other fun things. And that's why he's pushing hard to have Jerome Powell cut interest rates, because we want the economy to explode and grow very fast, because that puts us in a lot better position. And everyone right now is hampering that. And that's why the BBB is good, because one of the provisions is getting rid of the illegal immigrants. And if you did that, that would help the economy.
I believe also it includes that there's not allowed to get any government benefits, federal government benefits.
Oh, yeah. The illegals? Yes.
Yeah. And so that's a big deal.
Massive deal.
Even like, I don't know if you saw what happened in Texas. Texas allows illegals to get in-state tuition rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so the head of the southern state of the DOJ, I don't remember what his name is, he sued Texas, and Texas backed off. Now, they need to sue Utah because Utah does the same thing. But they backed off and they quit giving in-state tuition to illegals.
Yeah, they shouldn't have.
Yeah. Utah does the same thing, sadly.
It's dumb. It's dumb.
It is dumb.
And then, so we're not going to pull up all the tweets that went back and forth, but
No.
What's your opinion of what happened?
I probably have a unusual opinion, and that is I don't give a hoot. You've got two guys with these huge egos. They decided to have a falling out because they disagree how things should be run.
Correct.
One of them is a politician from New York that has learned how to bribe, cheat, and steal and strong arm and in New York. And the other one is someone who is, and if you talk to his employees, someone who is rules his employees with an iron fist. And it's his way or the highway. And if it's the highway, you get out of his way right now. And so you've got these two big titans. They both love America. They disagree on how to get from point A to B. Elon doesn't understand government, and I don't think as well as Trump does. So I don't really care. It's going to get done. Let them fight. It's open out in the open. Who cares? It's funny to watch.
Yeah, I disagree because I think Elon has Trump trying to build a coalition with people to help support an agenda.
Correct.
Make America great. Part of that was bringing Elon in to do that. And what this shows is that Elon doesn't really care about that agenda. He cares about his own agenda above and beyond the general populace. And that's disappointing.
Yeah, but
I mean, we did see that a little bit with the H-1B visa debate where Elon pretty much said that Americans are worthless.
Yeah. That was in December, and it's kicking back off right now again.
Oh, yeah. They're going after him for it.
Because it's a horrible thing. I've been negatively impacted by it greatly.
So it's just another disappointing thing to show that Elon isn't actually... I would disagree. I don't think he loves America. I think he has a vision for America that is contrary to Trump's vision for America.
I don't know. I don't know him. So
based on what he said,
yeah.
H-1B visa stuff, this current thing with the big, beautiful bill and his statements against Trump and all this crap he's throwing, saying that we need a new political party and stuff, which that is literally what MAGA was, is a new political party taking over the Republican Party.
Yeah, it did take over.
It shows that he's no longer part of Make America Great. He wants something different. And he came out and I think he tweeted that he said he's a socialist.
Well, it's childish. How
he's acting like a petulant child.
It's very childish where it's gotten to. But once again, I don't think I'm not going to lose any sleep over it because
well, me neither. But
it's not going to affect me one way or the other because Trump's going to push his stuff through.
Yeah, but it shows his lack of care for anyone else but himself, Elon. Which is disappointing.
Shock to anybody who's watched his
life. It is
life.
a little bit shocking because
I don't think so.
You would think someone that smart would realize that if you care about other people, it helps promote your own interests.
And I think he
doesn't catch that.
I think he cares about people as long as they fit within his box.
Yeah, but that's not how things work.
And I agree.
That's not how life works at all.
Right, but I think it's just a weird thing. But anyhow, I think it has had some negative impact on his stock. It's had some negative impact on stuff. The H-1B visa's kicking off again. That's going to, if they really want to get America going, I know for a fact my wages have been suppressed by H-1Bs.
Yep.
I've had bosses that weren't U.S. citizens that were H-1Bs. Yeah. And they're horrible because they don't know what the crap they're doing. I work with the people that are...
Well, and not only that, you're sending all this money to other countries instead of into the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
So I think Elon's going to realize real quick that politics is not something that he has any skills at because it takes a different skill set than what he has. You can't just come in and say, you do what I want or you're fired. That's not sadly how government works. Sometimes it'd be nice if that is, but it is not a dictatorship. It is a mess of corrupt people that you all have to convince to get on board with something. And so whether you like Mike Johnson or not, he herded 215 cats to vote for the big beautiful bill and got it passed, which is a feat of itself.
Well, he heard it. I don't know what it was. I don't remember what it was, the exact numbers today. And he got another bill passed today that says that you can't be illegal. Well, no, you can't be a foreigner and get a small business administration loan. You have to be a U.S. citizen.
Obvious.
219 Democrats voted against it.
Yeah. It's just,
but it got passed.
It's so dumb.
So,
and I'm disappointed. I've said this last, I think, the podcast with Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, because they're pushing against Trump's agenda hard. They're like, we're principled, and like, that's great. I went ahead and looked it up. Nothing they have created and put forth has been passed. Why? Because unless it's perfect, they're not willing to pass it. And the Republicans in Congress would do well to learn from their liberal brethren who are willing to take any win, no matter how small, to further their agenda. Because that's literally how you win in government. It doesn't matter how small the win is. If you're moving the goalpost forward, you take it. And that's what this does. This big, beautiful bill, it's not perfect. There's some crap in it that I don't like, but it moves us in the direction we want to go to continue to make the United States a better country again. Secures the borders, gets rid of the illegal aliens, creates some defensive measures that we need. Because if the Golden Dome can do what it says it does, then nuclear weapons other countries have mean nothing to us.
Well, and most of those are 50 years old anyway.
That, yes. And then it helps with fraud in Medicare.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it enshrines tax cuts that need to be enshrined.
Yeah.
So it's just disappointing to see some people who are like, we're principled and you're not because you're going to vote for it, when they literally get nothing done ever except for complaining.
I think Benjamin Franklin, it sticks in my head that was him, said that government is the art of the compromise.
It is.
And it sucks.
Oh, compromise is the worst.
But to get things done. So.
All right. We're going to talk about Palantir real quick. Why? Because the New York Times posted this story saying that the Trump administration had partnered with Palantir to collect United States citizen data.
Everything about everybody.
Do you know what the article actually said? It said that Trump had contracted with Palantir, and then they just made up the rest because they had no evidence for it. So anyone who's come out and said that Trump's bad because he's collecting information on American citizens, well, you should probably check your source. Anything that comes from the New York Times, you should assume is just a blatant lie, unless you actually see evidence to back it up.
Well, they were one of the ones that pushed the COVID narrative and the Russia narrative and the this narrative and the that narrative.
So that's the whole reason I wanted to bring it up, because people need to realize that story is completely false, and that is not. There's no evidence that Trump has contracted with them to do that.
It could be possible.
It could be.
There's zero evidence. So
correct.
Yeah.
So don't trust sources that are unreliable.
That have proven themselves unreliable.
And if you didn't know that, you should know that by now. That the corporate press they just lie every single day, all day long.
Yeah. So this is an important thing for us.
So some fun things happened this week.
Yeah, at the Supreme Court. And the one thing that to pay attention to is how many of these were unanimous decisions.
I can't remember who it is, but a constitutional attorney I follow on X, one of the things he points out, go away, is people don't realize that the majority of Supreme Court decisions are close to unanimous or unanimous. It's not a split decision on everything. It's normally pretty just straightforward.
Yeah. And so this first one, Catholic Charities, Wisconsin said they weren't religious enough to qualify for state exempt tax exempt status because of the court's view serving the poor wasn't a typical religious activity. The Supreme Court said, you guys are stupid. Sotomayor said,
you guys are stupid.
Basically, it's just, that was the Wisconsin Supreme Court that they just thumped.
Oh, yeah, the Wisconsin
unanimous
Supreme
decision,
Court
overturned it, and said
unanimous. That means they
you
all
can't
voted in favor.
Yep. So the next one, Another unanimous decision, okay, that this is the one that background circumstances allow for discriminatory behavior. So in other words, if you're white or part of a majority group like a Christian, you have a higher evidentiary burden just because of that when you sue for discrimination. And they unanimous again. This was unanimous again. They overturned the lower court and said,
Yep.
no, everybody has the same rights. Doesn't matter what color you are,
So
what
you're
religion
saying
you are.
that whole philosophy that was been pushed for the last 5 years that you can't be racist against white people,
Yes.
from a legal perspective, that's wrong.
Well, and not just from that. It's from these liberal legal people on the Supreme Court
Oh yeah,
said
it was unanimous.
it was unanimous. You can't do that. So this is going to be great.
Yes.
And then the next one, this is amazing, that federal courts can exercise jurisdiction over foreign government entities when immunity exceptions apply and proper service is made. In other words, you don't have to go through all these hoops. And this is not as big a deal to us, but it's way bigger because this allows American courts to hold foreign state-sponsored entities. For an example, if there is a state-sponsored terrorism group in Libya or something else, U.S. courts now have the rights to go after them.
Good.
So
Which they should.
It's a big deal. It's not personally a big deal. And then this
was a
second to
unanimous
last one, unanimous
decision as
again.
well.
So this says families of U.S. citizens murdered by Hamas were trying to sue a Lebanese bank because they had provided financial services for Hamas. They couldn't do it under the existing law, and so they wanted to add to it afterward, and they weren't allowed to because unless there's extraordinary circumstances.
Correct.
So they stood firm that you can't just keep adding to a lawsuit over and over and over and over
After
to try to
final
make it better.
judgment.
Yeah.
Which is the point.
Yeah.
After a final judgment, you can't just add new things to a lawsuit.
Right. That's an example is if you're convicted of murder, capital murder, and you're on death row, the only way that they can rehear your case is an extraordinary circumstance that comes about. And usually that is corruption in the court that tried you, corruption in the prosecutor, something extraordinary, and then they'll hear it. Otherwise, they just say, no, we won't hear it.
Yep.
So that's good that they stood firm.
So what's this last case about?
And this last one is Mexico. Mexico sued, Smith & Wesson, saying that they violated their rights because the gun manufacturer didn't take enough care on who they sell their guns to and aided and abetted illegal firearm sales. And they just
such bullcrap.
threw it out.
Good.
And said, nope.
I mean, Mexico should have gone after the U.S. government if they're really mad.
That's exactly
Shoot the ATF.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're the
They
ones
handed guns to the cartels.
Exactly.
Under what, Obama?
Yep.
Fast and Furious.
Yep.
That was great. Some good stuff right there.
So this is a big deal because it gets these foreign actors to come in and try to abuse our companies that sell a legal product. That's the one thing everybody needs to remember. Guns are a legal product.
They are.
They're not illegal.
This reminds me of Marco Rubio, what he did recently. He told anyone in Europe, if you're suppressing free speech, you are not allowed in the U.S.
Correct.
It's wonderful.
It was.
We should continue doing things like that.
Absolutely. So these are a big deal for the Supreme Court win. And there was another one today. What was the one today? There was one more today. And
Was the one I was talking to you about?
Yeah.
That I can't remember now because I already talked to you about it.
That's fine.
But Supreme Court's been actually doing some reasonable stuff.
Shocking.
Some of the stuff they've done hasn't been reasonable. One of the ones was, what was it? It was a gun case recently that they didn't take. And it wasn't that they didn't take it. They told the lower court to retry it.
Yeah.
And it's like, couldn't you guys just ruled on it and moved on?
It's
So-
frustrating when they refuse to do stuff like that.
So it should come back to the
Yeah.
Supreme Court, but it's going to take another year probably.
So moving on to our next subject, AT&T.
Look, another data leak. Oh wait, a hack.
Yeah, it's,
Was it an actual hack or was it social engineering?
I believe it's a combination, I think, of both. Which social engineering is normally how they get in.
I love
they
there's a clip
expand it.
about that. This guy comes up to this nerd and's like, I need to get into this company's database. And the nerd hops on his computer, gets online and starts playing a video game. And the guy's like, what are you doing? I'm getting to know this guy who has security access through this video game. And then it says 6 months later, oh, I got all the credentials. We're in.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked for a lot of big companies, and they always have the internal phishing that they do.
Yeah.
And the funny part about it is some of the you'd never get passwords from anybody who is lower down in the totem pole, but the upper management, they'd send you their password.
That's not help. The people with more access.
Yeah.
People with more access fell for it.
It's just insane.
So, if you were affected by this data leak because you're an AT&T customer, you should probably change your password. If I were you, because your social security numbers were leaked again, remember they've already been leaked like twice, at least twice.
At least.
They're out there on the internet. What you should do, the biggest thing, because people try to steal federal tax refunds. It's one of the things they're trying to do. Go sign up for an ID protection PIN with the IRS. What that does is it means that when you file a tax return, you have to get that PIN when you submit the tax return, or they won't accept it. So it's just a real simple way for you to protect yourself because your social security is out on the
And
dark
the
web
other
somewhere.
thing you need to do is to lock down.
Oh, yeah,
your credit
freeze your
reports. Freeze your credit reports. It's all free with everybody. They make
Yep.
it a pain in the butt mostly.
It's not as
But
bad
you
as
can
it
find
was.
it. It's not as bad as it was, correct. Go freeze your credit reports. You can always unfreeze them. There's apps that everybody has that you can unfreeze them on an app when you want to apply
And it's
for
a
credit.
temporary unfreeze. So
Yeah.
you freeze it, and then you can go in there. Hey, I'm going
Temporary.
to unfreeze it for this day or week or
Yep.
small period, and it just refreezes automatically.
And
It's the best thing to do again to protect against identity theft because they can't open any credit in your name without unfreezing
Right.
it.
and be aware that you unfreeze. I unfroze my credit for 1 week, and I had my credit hacked in that 1 week.
Wow, you're
So-
unlucky, or you're really lucky.
I'm really.
Have you
lucky.
tried to play the lotteries?
Well, we don't have it in Utah.
I mean, you can go to Windover and play the
It's
slots.
true. You could go to Bendover. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
What we got next? Oh yeah. So we're gonna circle back to a similar topic. So during this whole argument between Trump and Elon, what was happening in the world?
Ukraine bombed a bunch of, and depending on who you believe the reporting, either they were old bombers or they were the new bombers. And so we don't know what they actually bombed, Ukraine did. And then Russia, guess what they did? They responded and they blew up a bunch of places.
That's surprising. Why would Russia
I know.
respond?
I mean, but they did. They blew up some
So
stuff.
this source, honestly, don't really vet any of our sources, but we don't know about the source. So,
Yeah.
Take what it is. But they were one of the few ones that had something posted on X about the Ukraine bombing. So Russia decided to bomb Kyiv and a bunch of other places as retaliation for
The bombing of the
Ukraine's
planes.
bombing them.
Yeah.
This just makes me sad because 6 months before the end of 2024, while Biden was still in the office, the Ukraine war wasn't that hot. There was some activity, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And then as the election looked like it was turning towards Trump winning, Biden purposely inflamed the conflict so much that I think he's almost made it impossible for Trump to negotiate peace.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's disappointing. And at this point, my stance is I almost want Trump to go to Putin and be like, you know what? You can take the whole country. I don't care. Just don't go anywhere else. We can be friends.
The amazing part about it is what he wanted before it started was something that we had agreed to previous.
Yeah.
And that's insanity of
Yeah.
what was pushed. And it's just, and it's horrible because millions, literally millions of people have been killed.
Yeah.
In Ukraine and
So many
Russia.
people.
Now, not millions in Russia. I think it's hundreds of thousands in Russia, which
But still,
I'm
it's
sorry.
too many.
That's, yeah. And so,
I know people are going to be pissed about my comment, but I honestly don't care at this point.
it
Just
doesn't
go
affect
take
us.
Ukraine and end the war.
Just whatever. If our CIA would quit, the war would end.
Well, I think Trump's working on some stuff to try to get some of that to end.
So let's talk about the AI bankruptcy. Oh, we did.
We
Never
did
mind.
talk about this already.
Let's talk about our last funny
So
thing.
this one's disturbing. This is very disturbing story.
So right in the middle of this thing with Elon and Trump, Gumby decided to post a topless picture,
It's scary.
and there it is.
Yeah. It's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. Too much skin.
Too much. Green skin.
Yeah, the young kids aren't going to know what that is, but
No, nobody does.
that's okay.
Anyhow,
Well, that's all the topics we had for today. I think it was fun.
Yeah.
Chat for a bit.
And
If you liked it, subscribe, leave comments, share with your friends.
Yep.
And we'll be back in a couple weeks.
all right.